in the one great experience of maternity, Mary's greatness ends, so far as the records show. Did she settle down to all appearances as an ordinary Nazareth housewife? Did she bear to Joseph other children? To many, the latter question seems like sacrilege, and yet there is nothing of authority written. To the contrary, nothing of authority, nothing of authority, nothing written. To the contrary. Tradition has it that Joseph died early in their married life. Tradition has it. Mary then was dependent for her support upon her son's labors. Did he refrain from his chief calling? Until he was 30 years of age, in order that he might know not only common toil but also filial duty in the support of the mother? Was it to consult on some family business that his mother and his brethren stood outside the house where he was teaching, being desirous to speak with him? All these questions are to us unanswerable, but it surely does not detract from the sacredness of the pictures to infuse into it every possible element of human interest. The Gospels turn their light once more, and for the last time, on Mary, the last time. It reveals her at the foot of the cross. Each of the synoptists tells us that many women followed him out of Galilee. By John alone is Mary mentioned as being present at the crucifixion when Jesus saw his mother and the disciple standing by whom he loved. He saith unto his mother, Woman, behold thy son. Then saith he to the disciple, Behold thy mother. And from that hour that disciple took her unto his own home. Why was this so if Mary had other living sons? Why? John, who it is probable was her own sister's son, would immediately lead the mother away from the terrible scene, where a sword was also piercing her own soul to a place where she could await the announcement of the end. The fact that there is no record of an appearance to Mary. The fact that there is no record of an appearance to Mary after the resurrection must be accounted for by the belief that her faith did not need this, in its assurance that death could not counter her divine Son. Nevertheless, the paucity of the reference to Mary in the New Testament after the nativity is perplexing. For the other legends concerning her history and character, which have been cherished by a very large portion of Christendom, are wholly indebted to what are known to the apocryphal Gospels. These consist of writings which were extant in some cases before the present New Testament books were selected as being alone authentic, but were not deemed of sufficient worth to be included in the canon. There is the Gospel of the birth of Mary. In the very early ages, this book was supposed to be the work of Saint Matthew. Many ancient Christians believed it to be authentic and genuine, and Jerome, who lived in the 4th century, quotes it entire. Another book of the same description, known as the Protevangelion of St. James, is mentioned by writers equally ancient. Then there is the Gospel of the Infancy. This, we are told, was accepted by the Gnostic Christians as early as the 2nd century, but it is full of manifest absurdities. Outrageous, even to the most compliant credulity. A fair sample of its stories, not including the miraculous, which are exceedingly puerile, is one which relates that at the circumcision of Jesus, an old Hebrew woman took the part that was severed and preserved it in an alabaster box of old oil of spikenard, and she had a son who was a druggist, to whom she said, Take heed thou sell not this alabaster box of spikenard ointment, although thou shouldest be offered 300 pence for it. Now this is that alabaster box which Mary, the sinner, procured and poured forth the ointment out of it upon the head and the feet of our Lord Jesus Christ, and wiped it off with the hairs of her head. The Gospel of Mary has been made the basis of much serious belief in regard to the Blessed Virgin. And especially have Christian artists drawn from its pages suggestions for their subjects. We will summarize the accounted gifts of the Mother of Jesus. Jesus, the Mother of Jesus, the blessed and ever-glorious Virgin Mary, sprung from the royal race and family of David, was born in the city of Nazareth and educated at Jerusalem in the temple of the Lord. Her father's name was Joachim, and her mother's Anna. The family of her father was of Galilee and the city of Nazareth. The family of her mother was of Bethlehem. Their lives were plain and right in the sight of the Lord. Nevertheless, for 20 years they suffered what in the eyes of the Jews was one of the greatest misfortunes. They were childless. Joachim is taunted with the fact by Issachar, the high priest. The good man, being much confounded with the shame of such reproach, retired to the shepherds who were with the cattle in their pastures, for he was not inclined to return home, lest his neighbors who were present and heard all this from the high priest should publicly reproach him in the same manner. Thereupon an angel appears to him and informs him that his wife Anna shall bring forth a daughter, and that they shall call her Mary. She shall, according to your vow, be devoted to the Lord from her infancy, and be filled with the Holy Ghost. From her mother's womb she shall neither eat nor drink anything that is unclean, nor shall her conversation be without among the common people, but in the temple of the Lord, that so she may not fall under any slander or suspicion of anything that is bad. The angel also appears to Anna, giving her the like information. So Anna conceived and brought forth a daughter, and according to the angel's command, the parents did call her Mary. And when 3 years were expired and the time of her weaning complete, they brought the virgin to the temple of the Lord with offerings. And these were about the temple. And there were about the temple, according to the 15 psalms of degrees, 15 stairs to ascend. For the temple being built on a mountain, the altar of burnt offering, which was without, could not be come near but by stairs. The parents of the Blessed Virgin and infant Mary put her upon one of these stairs. But while they were putting off their clothes in which they had traveled, and according to custom putting on some that were more neat and clean, in the meantime the Virgin of the Lord in such a manner went up all the stairs one after another, without the help of any to lead or lift her, that anyone would have judged from hence that she was of perfect age. Thus the Lord did in the infancy of his Virgin work his extraordinary work, and evidenced by this miracle how great she was like to be hereafter. But the parents, having offered up their sacrifice according to the custom of the law, and perfected their vow, left the virgin with other virgins in the apartments of the temple, who were to be brought up there, and they returned home. Mary, we are told, was ministered unto by angels until her 14th year, and preserved from all suspicion, suspicion of evil, so that all good persons who were acquainted with her admired her life and conversation. At that time the high priest made a public order that all the virgins who had public settlements in the temple and were come to this age should return home, as they were now of a proper maturity, should, according to the custom of their country, endeavor to be married. This Mary refuses to do, she having vowed her virginity to the Lord. Then the high priest convenes a meeting of the chief persons of Jerusalem to seek counsel from heaven in this matter. A voice from the mercy seat directs that all the men of the family of David who were marriageable and not married should bring their staves to the altar, and out of whatsoever person's staff after it was brought a flower should bud forth, and on the top of it the Spirit of the Lord should sit in the appearance of a dove. He should be the man to whom the virgin should be given and be betrothed. Among the rest, Among the rest there was a man named Joseph, of the house and family of David, and a person very far advanced in years, who drew back his staff, when everyone besides presented his. Joseph, however, was clearly pointed out in the manner described as being the chosen man. Accordingly, the usual ceremonies of betrothing being over, he returned to his own city of Bethlehem to set his house in order and make the needful provisions for the marriage. But the Virgin Mary, with 7 other virgins of the same age who had been weaned at the same time, and who had been appointed to attend her by the priest, returned to her parents' house in Galilee. Then follows an account of the Annunciation, similar to that given by St. Luke, but somewhat elaborated. Then Mary, stretching forth her hands and lifting her eyes to heaven, said, Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, let it be unto me according to thy word. In the Protevangelion, all this is recited but at greater length. It is there said of Mary that while she lived in the temple, all the house of Israel loved her. It is related also of her that she was chosen by the priest to weave the purple veil for the temple. In this writing, Mary is described as having received the announcement of the angel as she went to the spring to draw water. There is also a curious passage in which Joseph is represented as telling the experiences which came to him as he went to seek a midwife in the village of Bethlehem. As I was going, he says, I looked up into the air, and I saw the clouds astonished, and the fowls of the air stopping in the midst of their flight. And I looked down toward the earth and saw a table spread and working people sitting around it, but their hands were upon the table, and they did not move to eat. They who had meat in their mouths did not eat. They who lifted their hands up to their heads did not draw them back, and they who lifted them up to their mouths did not put anything in. But all their faces were fixed upwards, and I beheld the sheep dispersed, and yet the sheep stood still. And the shepherd lifted up his hand to smite them, and his hand continued up, and I looked up unto a river and saw the kids with their mouths close to the water and touching it, but they did not drink. Notwithstanding all that is said in these ancient writings, in the attempt to do her honor, we must conclude that the glory of the halo which beautifies the head of the real Mary is derived by reflection from the moral splendor of her Son. Of what intrinsic greatness of soul she was possessed, it is difficult for us to surmise, from the slight attention given to her in the Gospels. Yet she rightly holds her position as woman idealized. We need such a poetic creation as Mary, and her place at the head of all the daughters of earth is the more secure and effective because her figure is authentic history. Authentic history. Because her figure in authentic history is but a shadowy outline. Because her figure in authentic history is but a shadowy outline. The ideal woman whom all mankind loves and reverences as Virgin, Mother, and Saint is objectified by concentrating in Mary of Nazareth all possible feminine grace, beauty, and purity.